Hey, what up, man? It's Scott. Just want to kind of talk about John Carpenter. You know, I heard about what happened recently where he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and all that. And he's always been kind of a lower budget kind of cat. I don't know how much ball he wanted to play with these guys to begin with, but it's still kind of cool to see that. But to me, he's the absolute horror goat. And, you know, Mount Rushmore would still have cats like Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft on there. But overall, he at least co-created Michael Myers. And a lot of stuff that's on that level. Plus, his scores, his soundtracks, his music making abilities. What, John Williams? Like, who else is like gonna fuck with that? You know, from the original Halloween theme to whatever, to watch any of his movies. I don't think he did anything on The Thing. I think that was somebody else. I could be mistaken on that. But they're all bangers, like everything. Like, he doesn't like slip like ever on the soundtracks, the scores. It's incredible. And it's like inseparable, especially with Halloween 1 and 2. Well, even 3. Like the beginning of that with the VHS pumpkin or whatever that's getting formed like digitally. I don't know how to describe that precisely, but I do remember the music, and I was like, shit. That actually suckered me into thinking when I was little that this was like, gonna pick up where part 2 left off with Michael Myers. I was so disappointed. And to this day, people have not gotten over that and like figured out how awesome that movie is, like just as a horror movie that exists. Shit, does 3 technically exist in the Myers universe? I don't know that. That's fascinating. But the score from The Jump in 3 was unbelievable, like with the car coming down, chasing the guy with the mask in his hand. 2, my favorite horror movie ever. The score was changed on that, and like everything was dope on that. Made it like sicker here and there. And you pick up on that at the beginning, like the credits of that with the actual pumpkin that turns into like the skull. He did Christine. Like that's a goddamn Stephen King masterpiece. Like, if you're gonna do a King novel or one of his short stories, that's how you do that, motherfucker. And what do you do? The score. Prince of Darkness with Alice Cooper as a demonic hobo. Once again, the score's sick. It's an underrated horror flick. Donald Pleasance is back up in that bitch. I forget the Asian dude's actor's name. The same one that was in Big Trouble in Little China. I was watching that the other day with my brother and my nephews. And it's almost like he is the same character in that because he cracks a few more jokes, but he's still like this kick-ass martial artist that can handle his shit, even though he just kind of wants to get the fuck out of there, and you think he's a coward the entire time. But he's still doing his thing a little bit in there. Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, Kurt Russell at his finest. I was watching like deleted scenes of that, and like one of them, I just started busting up laughing so hard because it was so damn funny. I'm just wondering, like, why did you cut that? I'm not getting it. Because Kurt Russell does drop an F-bomb. Maybe that was like too much. I don't know. I have no idea. Can only have so many of those. I don't know. But shit. But we were watching that, and like the practical effects in there with the monsters was surreal. And you got the ape thing that's scary as a motherfucker. You got like the kind of like the Guardian ripoff of Dungeons and Dragons, which was awesome. The bug thing that comes out of the tunnel, gets the guy, you will come out no more. Whatever Egg says there. All the practical effects in that, like with like the deity godling guys, I don't know what you call them. But yeah, that movie was sick. It pulled off everything with like the humor and like how dark it was, and straight out of the 80s, an 80s baby, which goes right into, and I don't know how many of these movies I'm going to cover, or if I'm getting out of order with a chronology, but They Live is another one that opens up with a sick ass Carpenter score. He just never fails on those. Rowdy Roddy Piper, man, he just destroyed that role with like unbelievable perfection. You just can't picture anybody else doing that. With Keith David, they had like, God, what was it? Like, to this day, like, it's one of the longest recorded fight scenes ever in movie history. We're talking like, what, upwards to like 10 minutes. I'm sure I'm getting some of this off a little bit, but it just goes and goes and goes. And a lot of it is like clear WWE or whatever wrestling moves, but it works and it's so cool. And like I said, it just goes and goes and goes. And then it goes back to the movie, which is just so dark and gritty with these aliens that have just corrupted humanity instead of like wiping us out. They just buy us cheap, do what the fuck they want. Oh man, so many parallels with that. That came out in 1988 with like today. Like, people go back like 1984, that ain't shit compared to 1988's John Carpenter's They Live, motherfucker. Check that out and tell me what you think. So The Thing, another GOAT. A lot of people have that as their number one horror movie of all time. Some people of all time, like any category. For me, it's up there-ish somewhere. Practical effects, we all know about that, and like how dope that is. Ghosts of Mars, another one of my favorites, man. Like, and I know like it bombed, like some of his movies do. But I love everything about that. You got Jason Statham in there, and God, when he bites the dust, that was kind of like, oh, really? Damn, anybody can go in this bitch. And it's just like pure horror. I think originally that was supposed to be Snake Plissken coming back for that, like Escape from Mars. Like, that would have been sick if they pulled that off. But, Ice Cube is Desolation Williams. God, I just love the movie. These miners, I guess. Plus, like, some scientists discover this alien structure, and it's like a trap. And it unleashes like these Martians' defenses where they can like possess your bodies and like make you self-mutilate or become an army against any more of you coming in. It's like a perfect defense. It's terrifying because like they're ghost-like and you can't see them, and then next thing you know, you're possessed and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So yeah, Escape from New York, one of my absolute favorite movies ever. so grimy, so gritty, so dirty. Like some of the special effects, like they're practical, yeah, but they're like, man, I just wonder if like Carpenter would be willing to like go back and some of his movies and just like kind of update some of the effects, like especially like the environmental ones, where if you touch it up, you know, it's not going to be jarring. It's just going to be more pleasant. But outside of that, like, absolute favorites ever. But a lot of his movies are of mine. They're all kind of up there. But that one, like that soundtrack is like, geez. It's hard to rank like his tracks because they're all so different, you know? And he either has something in mind track wise to begin with and then make a movie off of it, or vice versa. There's like he makes it happen with like his tracks. And the one for Escape from New York is just so sick. And that's from an era of like major like post-apocalyptic, you know, kind of dystopian futures, which I love. That's like right up there, the top shit I like, you know. A Boy and His Dog, Mad Max, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, stuff like that. Stuff we're all gonna get to and talk about. So Escape from New York, like I was like, man, once again, my mom kind of let me slip through the cracks and watch that, you know, at a young age. And like, I always appreciated her for that, you know, just let me watch it. I'll be all right. But, so then what else we got? Like tons, like the next one, Escape from LA. That's another one that bombed, and, you know, I don't really like that movie. And there's a couple other ones I don't like, you know. And this one is just because like he fucking fucked up so much here and there. I'm like, what happened? You know, this should still be dope, you know, even if you're like retreading a little bit of stuff you did from Escape from New York. But once again, his soundtrack was dope. The shit he was trying to do in there was like hella ambitious, but it's like you don't have the budget for any of that. And the CG that he was fucking around with back then, it was laughable back then even. But it's still a fun ride, don't get me wrong. Like if you put that in theaters right now and you went and watched it, like you wouldn't be mad. Because there's just so much crazy stuff in there. Like, you know, waiting for like an earthquake and then surf the tsunami it creates. To people like harvesting people's it's not organs like that too, but it's more like plastic surgery for like the wealthy that are wealthy, I guess, somewhere in this fucked up place we used to call LA. But moving on, like I said, I don't know if I'm gonna cover everything that he's ever done. But like all of his scores were sick. I'm glad he got the star. I don't think he needed it though. If you never got that, like, yeah. He always was a B movie guy. And I got into it with a guy. I was going down and doing Christmas trees on a Christmas tree lot one year, and I'm in Oregon. We're going down like into Southern California to do this, and like you're riding with this guy, and like we were just talking about stuff. I thought everything was all good and brought that up, Escape from New York, and I must have rubbed him the wrong way with one of my opinions. I do that all the time. Like, man. But he's like, he kind of like snapped like a, you know, because I said like how awesome Escape from New York was, and he's like, yeah, for a B movie. Yeah, fair enough for a B movie. So I said like he's my favorite horror master ever, Well, you're talking like They Live and that's horrific or whatever, or, you know, stuff like that. So, but is that enough? Because look at what Stephen King did and what like H.P. Lovecraft did and like predecessors, as few as they are. So Michael Myers like is like fucking like you're done. Like, what does Stephen King have against that? Like, what's the one like thing that'll pop into your head that's gonna fuck with that? Is it Pennywise? Because I just about my favorite horror novel ever is The Stand, especially like the one where they put back hundreds of pages that was cut and edited out originally. That was the one I read. I don't know, like just like he packs a punch when it comes to like who the greatest horror mind ever is. But and I know that the Myers series Halloween, like it wasn't that great from like, you know, a certain point on. You can debate that and you can do whatever. We all have our lists. But how are you going to get over the hump of Michael Myers? Plus, it's not like he just has Myers, okay? Like he's a horror genius that has tons of awesome creations, okay? Or reimaginings, just like Stephen King did, you know, with H.P. Lovecraft. And, you know, the prime example would be The Thing, because Carpenter didn't write that story, you know. Carpenter didn't write Christine. But once again, I'm kind of rambling on. Like I said, I wasn't going to go over like his entire history, but that headline, you know, caught my attention. I'm glad he got it, but I'm also like, it wouldn't have surprised me if he'd been like, I don't really care what you guys think. So yeah, John Carpenter, my favorite horror master ever. Michael Myers walking up and down those halls in that hospital. You never know, like, when he's going to turn around a corner and, like, spot Lori who's crawling around drugged out with her broken ankle, leg, whatever it is. I think it's an ankle. Always freaked me out as a kid. And going back, it just still holds up. 1 and 2 are kind of like the same movie. I mentioned that before. But Rick Rosenthal did a great job, I thought, even without the major changes, which were all awesome to me. I appreciate everything Carpenter did when he took over, because he was disappointed with it. And, you know, made it bloody. It's got to be bloody, even though the original one had next to no blood. There was some, like, people don't really talk about, like, the guy that was, like, thrown, like, into the bushes. I do believe there was, like, blood on the leaves, but that's really splitting atoms, if you will. That's not what I'm trying to do. But yeah, John Carpenter, you know, can't say enough about him, like, ever. Who could, if you appreciate horror? And I'm sure I'm missing some like key movies. But this video is pushing 20 minutes. Yeah. If you want something that's like completely dedicated to Carpenter, you can find that on YouTube, no problem. But this is just me talking on my channel about, you know, one of my absolute favorite people ever, and I'm so glad he's still kicking it, because people are dropping like flies that I loved and admired and respected in, you know, movie making history. But yeah, man, John Carpenter, anybody horror-wise has got to appreciate something he did somewhere down the line. And his soundtracks are catchy. Like, you're gonna remember them. Like, I got opening credit scenes, the credit scene of Big Trouble in Little China stuck in my head, and I'm so glad because it's wiping out like bullshit that gets stuck in your head that you don't want there, and it's gonna scour that out. And it's awesome to have like a John Carpenter track in your head for a while. But anyways, man, yeah, John Carpenter, Grandmaster of Horror. Later.